everybody, I'm Nicole.
I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Sarah, and together we're the co-founders of Whale Tales, a living library of cetacean stories.
Today, we are joined by a special guest. Hooray!
So sit back and enjoy as we dive right in.
It's special guest time. Yay! That's my song for now.
Loved it.
Today, we're super excited to have a special guest. We are talking to Stephanie Stack, also excellent name. Stephanie is a cetacean researcher working in Australia and Hawaii.
We sat down with Stephanie primarily to discuss her note, which is an article, as we'll get into, titled An Observation of Sexual Behavior Between Two Male Humpbacks, which is a super cool discussion, and we do also chat about her current work in humpback research.
So we recorded this conversation way back in August, and I've got a few updates about Stephanie. She is now officially a PhD candidate, which is very exciting. And in her current field season, they have successfully tagged at least 5 humpback calves in Moreton Bay off of Brisbane. You can check out her social media for some footage from these tagging trips. And in the episode, we get more into why she's going on this tagging. So let's dive right in.
Okay, we're joined now by Stephanie Stack. Thank you, Stephanie, for being here. It's great to have you. Why don't we just start off with who you are and what you do with cetaceans?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm excited to be here. So I'm a humpback whale researcher. I'm originally from Canada. I was born in the province Newfoundland and Labrador. And nowadays I'm living in Brisbane, Australia, working on humpback whale research. I am currently a PhD student here at Griffith University, and my doctoral dissertation is about humpback whale migration dynamics in a changing climate. But I've spent the last 10 plus years studying humpback whales in Hawaii and Australia, and I'm happy to be here and chat about my work with you.
Oh, that sounds like the dream. Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Sounds amazing.
Hawaii and Australia.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty perfect.
Two pretty great places.
Yeah, and humpbacks. Oh.
Yes, though the changing climate part, I imagine,
Yes.
and we're going to dig into it a little bit, but I imagine that is just like any time when we're talking about climate change, hard if you're living in that world, doing that research every day.
Yeah, it can be discouraging for sure at times, but you know, I feel I'm an optimistic person by nature, and I feel like the work that I do makes a difference, and you know, we need people doing this type of research and
definitely
advocating for changes. So yeah, I mean, this is why I like to do podcasts, and science communication is really important to me, so that, you know, it's not just stuck in the academic world, but the work that we're doing actually gets out there to the masses so that people can make informed choices and vote and, you know, use their power to make a positive change in the world.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, what a good answer. Nice job.
Oh, thank you.
Do you want to we're going to talk about your article in a minute, which actually isn't necessarily about your doctoral topic. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what your research is and like what you're doing for your doctoral work? What kind of research are you doing methodology-wise and stuff?
So for the past decade or so, a lot of the work that I do is looking at how human activities impact and affect populations of humpback whales. And a lot of that has been behavioral ecology studies, so looking at the behavior of the whales and, you know, how that interacts with their environment and how human activities may be changing their behavior or causing some behavioral changes. And sort of the next, I think, natural step of that is looking at, well, so what? What does that mean if we're changing their behaviors? What does that actually cost a whale, or what, you know, is the broader impact on whales and whale populations? And so that's what I'm doing now, and working with a really great team of researchers here at Griffith University. My supervisor is Susan Bankston-Nash, and she's done remarkable work in Antarctica for the past decade or more, looking at humpback whales as sentinels to represent changes in the Antarctic ecosystem. So when I was looking for someone to work with, she was a great natural step for me, and someone that I really respect and look up to and admire. And so, yeah, I approached her and asked if she was open to this, and she was really eager and excited about it. So for my current work, we're looking at various aspects of the demography of the migrating humpback whales up and down the coast of East Australia. So humpback whales in East Australia, they migrate between Australia and Antarctica, and they've been relatively well studied, since whale research has begun, really, since the 80s. And so there are some population parameters that are relatively stable with this population, like their growth has been relatively stable at about 10% per year. So they're great in terms of being a sentinel species for change, in that when things change, we can detect it and note it and know that something's happening. And they're a way for us to understand what's going on in Antarctica. Antarctica is a lot less accessible for researchers to get to and to study the whales down there, although people are doing it. But it's a lot harder to get down to Antarctica and monitor exactly what's going on down there. So this is sort of a way that we can interpret the changes in Antarctica through what we observe up and down the coast of Australia.
Amazing. Yeah.
So, like, what would a field day look like for you?
Every field day is different. You never know what you're going to get. And for my project, we're using a combination of existing data, the historical data that's been collected by my laboratory, previous PhD students already, and collecting new data. So I'm really lucky to have access to a large historical data set and to be able to collect new data of my own with a lot of different collaborators. So we are, for example, this season, what we're focusing on this year is we're going to be, hopefully, tagging some whales in Moreton Bay. So we're using these suction cup tags with video cameras built into them. They're called CATS tags. And we hope to deploy them onto mother and calf humpback whales and record the calves nursing from their moms. Yeah, it's not really well understood right now how mums and calves are using this area, Moreton Bay. We know that mums and calves have been seen in Moreton Bay from some previous work done by my lab and by a different PhD student, but we don't really know how long they're sticking around there or what they use that area for. But it's an area that gets a lot of shipping traffic. It's pretty well traveled, and so there's potential for interruption of nursing activities. So we want to kind of spy on the whales from their point of view. Too.
Where on the humpback body do you attach these cameras? Trying to visualize what you would see.
Yeah, so ideally we place the camera onto the back of the whale and slightly to the side. So the camera should be facing forward and facing sort of towards the mouth of the whale, so that when the calf goes up to the mom and nurses, hopefully we're positioned, to look
at least be able to
the side
see
of the body and see that happening.
Oh, that's so cool.
That is really interesting.
And I say hopefully because that takes skill and finesse.
Yeah, and just attaching the camera in the first place is, I'm assuming, not as easy as you might hope.
Yeah, much easier said than done.
And what time of year do you get humpbacks through the area where you are?
So in the southern hemisphere, it's opposite to where you are in the northern hemisphere. So this is our whale season right now when we are recording this in August. Oh, should I say that?
Yeah, that's fine.
No, that's fine. Yeah, it's so confusing to me, like when I was there and when I'm now here, because we get humpbacks at the same time, but they're doing the opposite things.
That's right.
So they're doing the opposite things. They're just feeding, and will have already given birth since before they got up here and stuff.
Yeah.
So it really trips me out.
Yeah, that's why I was confused. Also.
Yeah. Right. Yes, of course. Yeah, I wasn't thinking that. Yeah, that's right. So it's our breeding and calving season in the southern hemisphere in the summer months, so June through October-ish. And then they'll go to Antarctica when they're to feed. Yep. And when they go to the breeding and calving grounds in the northern hemisphere.
Yeah.
So
it's very strange.
Hard to keep
I don't
going.
know.
Okay. Any other questions, or do we want to?
No, I think let's move into some northern hemisphere humpbacks. Look at that. Segue. Okay, so the reason we reached out to you in the first place was because of this article that you did receive quite a lot of media attention for, which I kind of want to touch on as well. So this is an article, and I want to make sure that I'm saying that because it's not a full paper like with methodology or anything, because it was an opportunistic encounter, which we'll get into. So the paper is an observation of sexual behavior between two male humpback whales, which was published in February of this year. So do you want to maybe talk briefly about publishing the article and all of that, and then we can talk more about the encounter and what went down?
Yeah, so, for any of your readers who are, not scientists or not sure about the different types of articles, you mentioned that this one is the category of article that this was published as. It's called a short note, and that's different to, a full research publication, or what we call a journal article. And they go through the same peer review process and everything. And the difference is short notes tend to be observations made, kind of while you were in the course of doing something else, and you just made an observation that was noteworthy or unusual or different and worth publishing, but wasn't necessarily, a full research study from start to finish where you came up with a hypothesis, tested that, did an experiment, and now you're publishing up your findings. So short notes tend to be like observations, or we saw this thing while we were out in the field. And so that's the type of article that this was. Yeah, it wasn't like we didn't intend to go out and capture this. It just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened?
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I wasn't, it wasn't a research survey when this happened. A friend of mine who lives on Maui and is a professional photographer contacted me and said, I was out on the boat today with some friends and something happened that we think was really remarkable. Can we chat about it? Can I share these photos with you? So that's how it started. That's how the origin of this. The group, it was just a private recreational boat that were out on the water. They weren't even really looking for whales. They were just swimming and like having a day on the bay type of scenario. And two of the people who were on board were professional photographers, and they had really great camera equipment on board with them, which turned out to be such a blessing for me. And so they had the boat shut off. They were just sitting around, I think, having some lunch, and they saw two whales approaching their boat. And the whales, according to them, sort of swam straight at the boat and then circled around the boat a number of times at a pretty close distance. And they thought, oh, wow, this is really cool. Let's get our cameras and see if we can take a photo of the whales. So they didn't get in the water. They just leaned their cameras like over the side of the boat. They had a waterproof housing. So they just leaned over the side of the boat and stuck their cameras in and had no idea what they had captured until after the fact. They just thought, oh, maybe I'll get a beautiful whale photo. And that was all they thought of it at the time.
I'm so sorry. That's insane to me because
I know.
Specifically, I've got the short note. Also, love the term short note. Had never heard that before. I think that's awesome. We have it up in front of us, and figure 3 in particular.
Yeah, it's
you
so
couldn't get this picture if you waited
like hours and years
for years to get it. We'll put it in the we'll put a link to the note in our show notes. But to everybody listening, like these pictures they're so clear and so perfectly framed. And I just feel like whenever I do that, where I stick a camera up, like maybe I'll catch something. It's like, oh, I'm lucky if I get just off in the bottom right-hand corner, this blurry thing. I'm shook, Stephanie.
Yeah, that's the skill and the talent of a professional, I think. And I should say their names are Lyle Kranichfeld and Brandy Romano. They both have lots of great whale photos available for sale, and if you want to support them, you can Google them, check them out.
Amazing.
I'm sure they'd appreciate
Yeah, for sure.
that.
And yeah, like I do appreciate in the note that you talk about like they explicitly weren't swimming because that's not allowed in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In the US, that's right.
So
yeah.
they were just lucky.
Yeah, we didn't want to encourage people to try to
exactly.
repeat the scenario by getting in the water with whales or harassing whales. It was
The
really
whales
just something
swam
that all
by
came
and
together.
you stuck a camera down. Yeah, or they stuck a camera down. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so they got back to land later that day, looked at their photos, and went, "Oh my gosh, what did we get?" And and they have both lived and worked on Maui for a long time and had some involvement with the whale watch industry, so they're pretty knowledgeable folks about whales. And so Lyle reached out to me. He said, "Am I correct that whale mating has never been, documented before? There's no photos of whales having sex? Humpback whales, I should specify, humpback whales." And I said, "Yeah, that's right." He said, "Well, I want to send you something." And he sent me this photo. I said, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." I couldn't believe that, that this is what we were seeing. And then again, they're pretty knowledgeable folks. So Lyle said, "Could you just have a look for me and tell me, is this two males? Because I don't see the hemispheric lobe." So if you aren't aware, humpback whales are different. Males and females, they're sexually dimorphic. They look physically, anatomically different on the underside. So you can sex a humpback whale by looking at its belly side and seeing if it's a male or a female. So, and people on Maui are pretty familiar with that.
Yeah,
a lot of them know
sure.
it's a male from a female. So he spotted that in the photos, and Lyle said to me, "I'm pretty sure that's two males. Can you just confirm that for me? I'm not 100% sure if that's a thing." And he sent me, photos of the genital region. I had a better look at everything. I said, "Yeah, you're right. This is two male whales." And he said, "Oh my gosh." He said, "I can't believe it. I thought it was amazing, already that it was just two whales mating. And now, it's this other layer to the story, another layer of complexity and excitement."
Yeah.
So, like, how many happy dances do you do?
Yeah. I mean, you see the smile on my face. Like, I love telling this story because I relive it every time I tell it. And it was just, and I was so excited. I wanted to share. I wanted to tell people about it. But I was like, oh, this should be published. This is a scientific discovery. This is worthy of publishing. So I said to them, like, "Are you guys okay with this? Is it okay if we publish it?" And they said, "Yeah, sure. If it's of value to scientists, go for it." And so that's how that evolved.
So nice that they were so open to sharing that, and also so curious to reach out to somebody, to experts in the field like yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think this story, and we tried to emphasize it in the paper as well, is such a good example of how citizen science is so powerful and so important, or community science, a lot of people are calling it now. And so, members of the public can and do contribute to science all the time with, they sometimes make observations or sightings that are of great importance, and only by talking to a scientist sometimes does that come to light. And so, I hope that this situation, this story, this encounter, I hope that it inspires other people to do the same, because there are so many people on the water all the time working, on whale watch boats or working, in other marine industries, and they could be contributing quite a lot to the scientific world.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a huge part of why we love what we do
Why
with
it
whale
exists.
tails.
Yeah.
So there is one other wrinkle in this story, which is Whale A and his body condition with his broken mandible and the whale lice. So I know you talked about in the article there was another observation of a male interacting with a dead humpback that was also a male. Is that correct? They were both males? Yeah.
Yes.
And so the only two times that this has kind of been seen, although that one didn't have penetration, was with an ailing or a dead male. Has there been any more discussion as to why this, like, I'm losing the words of, like, not mating, social behaviors and just trying to, I don't know. This is the part that's confusing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's such a rare observation, because it's the first time this has been observed, we really don't know, and I couldn't say whether this behavior happens with healthy male individuals or not. We have no idea right now if this is related to that injury and the condition and the poor health of one of the whales, or if that was just, a sort of coincidence, if it just happened to be that that's the two whales that were involved. And we really won't know that until more research is done, until more observations are made, one way or the other. So it's a really interesting sort of piece of the puzzle right now. That's all it is. It's still a puzzle for us right now. Yeah, so it's plausible that the condition of the whale was like the motivating factor and why this was happening, but we don't know for sure. And even if it was, it's not necessarily an aggressive behavior. I think that the media really spun it that way, or some media at least. But that's not necessarily the case, and the observations that were made and the behavior that we saw doesn't allow us to draw that conclusion with certainty. It could have been the case, but it's not necessarily the case, because humpback whales are not humans, and animals, have sex very differently to have human reproduction. And so we don't want to try to interpret it through the lens of human sexuality and human behavior, which I think some folks have struggled with a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, we as a biologist, we look at things through the lens of animal behavior and through ecology and evolution. So it could have been a sort of comforting or nurturing behavior, although people sometimes struggle with that and find it a bit unusual. As humans, it could be the case, because cetaceans are very tactile, they're very physical with one another, and they do rub up and touch one another. And we've seen cases where other species of cetaceans use male and male sexual behavior like this to develop bonds between individuals and to socialize with each other. So it could have been some type of social bonding, or, comforting a sick and maybe dying individual. That could very well be the case. It could have also been an aggressive behavior, because males are in Hawaii, they're in the breeding grounds, and so males are competing with other males to get access to the females and mate with them. So it could have been, an extension of that, and a type of aggressive behavior from, a so-called dominant male over a injured and weaker male. Both are equally likely and viable explanations. We just don't know at this point.
And I think, yes, it seems like a great direction for more research, but the fact that no other reproduction sexual behaviors have really been observed between humpbacks makes it probably pretty challenging to continue this line of research, I'm assuming.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll put the plea out if anyone has any other photos, call me.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's like that. It's something, I don't think I've ever really thought about it, but it's just so wild to me. Like, we've been studying humpbacks for, what are we at now, 60 years? And they are cosmopolitan species. They're incredibly well studied, and this is a thing that we haven't seen yet, and it's weird to me. And I think probably, like, thinking about it, obviously we haven't seen a lot of them, but also, like, I've seen so many sea carrots out in the water that just like, yeah, sure, everybody sees this kind of stuff. So that's wild.
Yeah, it's amazing that there's still so much that we don't know about humpback whales, other species of whales, the ocean. yeah, there's quite a lot left to be.
Yeah, like I would think of humpbacks as a whale that we know like
so
relatively the most about
Yeah.
in the sort of grand scheme of whales. But yeah, there's so many mysteries still.
Yeah, so there has been observations. Some co-authors and I have a paper that's been submitted to a journal, and it's going through the review process now, of a behavior called epimeletic behavior, and that's like helping behavior between humpback whales as well. So it's a similar observation to this one, but a different one, where we saw an entangled humpback whale, so in Maui, Hawaii, and this whale had an escort whale that was sort of supporting it and helping it to the surface and sticking by really closely during the last days of its life. So there's so much that we really don't know yet about humpback whale behavior and the dynamics between individuals and how they interact with each other. So yeah, I think it's such a fascinating area of research, and I'm really proud to play a little part of it.
Amazing.
That is amazing. I did actually want to ask, do you know if whale A was seen again? Or is it assumed that he had died?
The injured animal, it was not seen again after that encounter. So have you heard of Happy Whale?
Yeah. We're very familiar with it.
Yeah, so a lot of researchers now are using Happy Whale to share their whale catalogs, and it's also really popular with Whale Watch naturalists and Whale Watch passengers. It's a great citizen science portal. So there have been no sightings of whale A, which is the sick or injured whale, since that day. I think it was probably a lethal injury, and that whale probably is not alive today, just based on the condition of it. And having seen some whales in similar condition, they tend not to be seen again. Whale B, though, the healthy whale, has been seen again since. So that guy's still out there and swimming back and forth between Southeast Alaska and Hawaii.
He could be out here right now doing whatever it is that he was doing.
Yeah, that's right.
Being a whale.
Being a whale.
Has anything about your ongoing research changed or been influenced by this note or this observation?
Good question. I don't think it's necessarily changed anything for me. You know, it's not really possible to design a specific study, to follow up on this. But it's very much taught me to keep an open mind and to sometimes remember that the things that we think we understand about these animals may not necessarily be the case, may not necessarily be what they believe to be about their behavior. Typically we describe humpback whales as solitary animals, and they don't have strong social bonds with one another outside of a mom and a calf in the first year of their life. But as I study them more and more, I start to feel like maybe that's not, necessarily the case, and maybe that's not a good assumption for us to be making, because I think they're very socially complex, and that they do have bonds between each other that we don't fully understand. And so, I just, I think we have a lot to unravel about whale behavior, and I think we should just keep an open mind and be willing to explore that.
Yeah, it's so hard, again, because we've got the two buckets of solitary animals and then like killer whales or dolphins or something that we know that they are always together in the killer whales with their hierarchical and their pods and all of those kinds of things. So it's hard. I think they've been just stuck in the two different sides for so long that it's hard to imagine.
Yeah.
And also hard to confirm, of course, because they're humpbacks and they're out there doing whatever it is they're doing. It's so hard to confirm, like, what their bonds might be that are not what we think, that are not entirely alone or living with their mothers for their entire lives. Like, there's obviously something in the middle. There's 90 whatever numbers of species of cetaceans, so there's definitely not just two categories.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's such a good point, though, is like when you compare them to killer whales, for example, great example. They're so different. Their society and their sociality is so different that it's easy to say, no, they're they're lone animals. They don't have interactions with one another.
But
yeah, maybe it's not quite that simple.
There's more than two ways to be, like, have a society of whales.
Yeah.
Well, and this is without even factoring in the fact that we, as evidenced by like what we've talked about, this is probably the best studied cetacean species, and yet this like really foundational behavior is something that has not been observed before. So when we start factoring in, just it's always really important for us to remember that everything that we know about life comes from breathing air on land.
Yeah.
And everything about their life would be different being in water.
Yeah.
Yes, that's very true. I like how you said that. Very true, and such a good perspective.
Yeah. Because it's easy to anthropomorphize. It really is.
Especially in this scenario.
Or relate to other, like, land animals, even if it's not directly anthropomorphizing. But, and, like, if we've missed this, key behavior, what else have we missed? Yeah. So, I think that's good. Like, it's not really changing your research, but changing or reaffirming your mindset of being, like, open to the possibilities. Yeah.
What was, just out of curiosity, Stephanie, like, what was the reception like for you, both from the scientific community and then also the more, like, not scientific, but more like media reception to the note? Yeah.
I remember seeing some of it, yeah.
Yes. In the scientific community, I got really wonderful notes from a number of different researchers and some really kind feedback. The reviewers who reviewed this article and the editors gave really encouraging and positive feedback on the article itself, and definitely helped strengthen the article. So I was really grateful for that and going through that process. And then, afterwards I got some really nice letters from a couple of people who said, oh, I saw this in the news and I wasn't too sure, but then I read the article and the article was really interesting and well done. So that was great. And I think people were surprised by it, of course. So I got, some really lovely comments from people in the field, and nobody else that I know of has said that they've seen this. So I think it's still probably the only observation, but hopefully that will change soon. You never know. The media attention was totally unexpected. It really caught me off guard. I can't believe, it went, I saw my work was shared in TMZ had an article in People magazine. It was on Saturday Night Live. And what is happening? Like, how is this real life?
That was the part for me that was like, what would that be like as a marine biologist?
You're just going about your day.
You wrote, and I think because it was a weekend update part of SNL, right? Yeah, and I'm just like, that's nuts. I don't think I'd ever be able to process that.
Yeah. I still don't really have the words. I mean, I should just retire right now because I don't think I'll ever be able to top any of this. It's been really fun. Like, I'm just having fun with it and enjoying it. And I wish it would lead to lots of big grant money, but that hasn't happened yet.
I wish for that also.
Yeah, your research study is sponsored by SNL and Lorne Michaels.
I do bet, actually no, maybe that's not true, but it would be fun to reach out and just be like, hey, I'm the one.
Yeah.
Do you want to buy me a camera or a boat or these?
That would be amazing.
These new tags for the caps? Yeah.
Come do a digital short.
Oh yeah, amazing.
Yeah, a few people, if you're not a scientist, you might not realize this. A few people asked me, do you get paid for all this? Do they pay you every time they use the photo or mention it? No. Absolutely not. No,
not at all.
It doesn't work that way. I so wish, but no.
That would just be work too well for us. Yeah.
But it's been fun. I've just been enjoying it. Yeah. Finally, my family knows what I do for work.
Yeah, that's definitely a bonus.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, fantastic. Is there anything else about the article or the encounter that you wanted to mention before we move on to other segments?
Gosh. No. I can't think of anything else.
No, that was really a fantastic discussion about this. It was such an interesting article to come across even before SNL got to it, and I'm glad that we were able to talk to you about it. It's a really cool, and it was just so fascinating and weird to read, and just being like, what are they doing down there? Why do they keep making more mysteries? We already have enough mysteries.
There's so many mysteries.
Yes, I'm glad you reached out about it, actually, because my schedule's been a bit crazy over the last few months, but I'm really glad we were able to connect.
Before we continue with the rest of the episode, we want to take a moment to tell you about how you can support our podcast and everything we do at Whale Tales.
You can join us by becoming a patron at patreon.com/whaletales. You can join for $1 a month at the porpoise level, $5 a month at the dolphin level, and $10 a month at the whale level.
Each level comes with a variety of perks, including polls, thank you postcards, access to extended interviews or extra stories our guests share with us when they come on, and you can even produce your own fun flipper fact segment of the pod. Plus, we have 2 additional podcasts for patrons because we love podcasting. And this month, we have an exciting Whale Tales Watch episode, which is for our whale level patrons, where we watch a thing and then we talk about that thing. And this is one you are not going to want to miss. It is a fan favorite, excellent Disney movie. Mm-hmm. And I think from that, you could probably figure out what it is.
We gotta be more specific.
That's true. There are a lot of good ocean Disney movies. It's about a little lost fish.
I was just going to say the word Pixar, but I'm sure that also worked.
There.
Yeah. Spoilers. It still slaps.
Yep. Correct.
Thank you so much to our patrons. You are truly amazing.
Agreed. If you aren't able to support us financially, there are still other things you can do to help us out. You can always leave a rating or a review on your podcast platform of choice, like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. This will help other people find us. And you can also just tell your sciencey cetacean podcast loving friends about the podcast and everything we do at Whale Tales so that they can listen along too.
And then you and your friends, science-loving, podcast-loving, just whoever, can also follow us on social media at whaletales_org. And you can send us your feedback so that we can keep making the podcast even better.
Well, I think that means that we are ready to move on to my favorite segment of the pod, which is the Fun Flipper Fact with Stephanie Stack.
Whoa! How long have you been holding on for that?
I made it up now. As I was singing, I realized your name was going to rhyme, and I was like, ha-ha!
You have to call it that going forward.
So, Stephanie, we ask this of every guest that comes on the pod. We know it's a very hard question, so no pressure. This doesn't have to be your favorite Fun Flipper fact. It is just a fact that you find really fun and fascinating about. It doesn't have to be humpbacks either, even though that's your animal of study, but just like a cetacean, something that you think is just really cool that you like to throw out at parties.
So you had sent me this question in advance so I could think about it. Thank you for doing that. And it was so hard for me. This is way harder than talking about
That's what
research.
Everybody says.
Yeah,
this is the most difficult part of the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what I've got. Did you know that the first birth of a humpback whale was just seen in the last couple of years?
No.
Wow.
Researchers just saw a humpback whale give birth for the first time quite recently. It had not been seen before, just like whales mating. Yeah. So in 2020, a tour boat operator in Maui stuck a GoPro underwater from the side of their boat and happened to see 2 little baby tail flukes sticking out of a mama whale. And she was in the process of giving birth.
That's crazy.
That was the first time that had ever been documented before, 2020. And the tour boat had to leave, so they didn't actually see, the birth through to completion. But a few weeks later, the mom was spotted again, and she had a healthy calf with her at that time. So we know that she did successfully give birth. And then just 1 year ago in 2023, National Geographic released the first and only footage of a humpback whale giving birth from start to finish.
That's so cool.
Wow.
So it's available to watch if you have access to Disney Plus. It's on Disney Plus and Nat Geo channel if you have that. And there's an episode all about humpback whales and their migrations between the breeding and feeding grounds. And that episode opens with this footage of the whale giving birth. They just stumbled upon it and happened to capture this. And it's amazing footage, so you should go check it out.
I remember seeing part of it, but I didn't realize it was the first full footage
one.
of it. I just was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, there's been quite a lot of firsts for humpback whales in the last.
Yeah, I think if this conversation teaches us anything, anytime you're on a boat, stick the camera in the water.
Yeah.
Within reason, obviously, always. And also with camera reasoning.
Yes.
But yeah, because they're just doing all sorts of secret things down there.
Oh.
Yeah, that's totally cool.
Okay, so you've already shared so many amazing encounters with us, but is there another whale tail or encounter that sticks out in your mind as something super memorable you've had with any cetacean?
Yes.
Yay!
Okay. So I get asked this question a lot. What's your favorite day on the water, or what's your most memorable sighting? And this one, I've been so lucky in my life so far. I've had some really amazing days with whales and encounters with whales. But this one, I think your listeners will enjoy because it's a really unique story. So I was lucky enough to get a call also from a tour boat in 2020, February of 2020, that they saw a whale, what they believed to be a whale that gave birth, and they saw this big floating blob on the surface of the water and called me to come and pick it up, and it was a whale's placenta. And so I actually recovered it and sampled it, and it will be a future publication that I have not written yet. It's coming. But I was able to recover a full and complete humpback whale placenta. And it's the first time since the whaling industry that we were able to sample this for histopathology testing. So it's pretty exciting moment and just really cool. Really gross but really cool moment in my life.
How big was it?
Yeah.
So it's hard to convey how big it was, but I always tell people, well, big enough to hold a baby whale. If that gives you an idea, it was pretty large, but very slimy and goopy and disintegrated very quickly. So we had to work quite quickly actually to sample it because it's quite literally falling apart in our hands as we were handling it, which I guess makes sense. In the ocean, it would be broken up and eaten by predators and become part of the ecosystem there. Yeah, so very large. I have pictures I can send you.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. It's such a weird thing that I'm just I'm so excited to see this, which seems weird, but I'm no, it's a part of this life that we don't get to see, of course, and it's so important. And,
exactly.
And, you can learn so many things about it from it, and just...
Yeah, exactly. So I've had some, family members that are nurses, or a friend of mine that's a midwife. They're super interested in this. They say, oh my gosh, it's the same anatomically as humans. We're all mammals. Just huge.
That's so exciting. I'm very excited to read that and see what you found. I just want to nerd out about whale placentas, which is only a sentence I say on the podcast.
Yeah, very strange, very strange. Before we wrap up, we like to leave our listeners with something that they can do to help support whales and the world they live in. So if you have any suggestions that you'd like to share, that would be great.
Yeah. So a lot of the work that I have done in the past has been regarding responsible whale tourism. So, there's different ways that you can do whale-based tourism. There's whale watching. I've also studied the swimming with whales industry in Australia. And I'm involved with a group at the International Whaling Commission that develops guidelines and recommendations for how to do whale watching responsibly. And I imagine that a lot of your listeners are whale watch naturalists or, people who love whales and go whale watching. So my call to action for this episode is about how to go whale watching responsibly, or how to learn more about how to go whale watching responsibly, or even how to choose a whale watch operator to go out with. And my suggestion there is to look up the IWC's handbook for whale watching. So the International Whaling Commission is a intergovernmental body that has members from many countries around the world, and we have a scientific committee. So scientists around the world meet to talk about whale-related issues, and nowadays the focus is largely on how to conserve and manage whale populations. And so one thing that the IWC has done is make a website that they call their handbook for whale watching, and it's full of really good advice. Whether you're a whale watch operator or a passenger who wants to go whale watching, if you just want to learn a bit more about what the IWC suggests, you can check that out. So you can search IWC Whale Watching Handbook, or you can go to handbook.iwc.int.
Nice. Yeah. We'll put that in the show notes also. So
yeah, definitely.
And, I think it's a great resource that isn't really talked about enough or promoted enough. So if I can help get the word out about that, that would be great.
That's great. I think we do get messages sometimes of people asking how to tell, especially like when you are going somewhere and you want to go whale watching there, like how to tell which company is the one that is responsible and with the whales. So that's a great resource for those people as well, because sometimes I don't have those answers. I can tell you here, but we get messages all over the world. This has been a fantastic conversation.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you so much.
Really, really great.
You're very welcome, and thanks for inviting me.
And do let us know when those other papers come out. We'll share them with everybody if we can, and I'm so excited for all of your more research and all of the other crazy things you're going to discover. No pressure. And let us know when you get your SNL sponsorship. And,
Yes, we'll do. If anyone wants to
reach out.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. It was awesome to meet you.
Yes, thank you.
You too. Thank you, Nicole.
I think that about wraps it up. We would love to hear your thoughts on this episode or any episode ever. So please visit our website, whale-tales.org, and find links to all of our social media handles so that you can drop us a line.
Our new website. I forgot to put that in there. Ooh, how exciting. Also,
it's so pretty.
It's our 10-year anniversary.
Yay!
Oh my gosh, I totally forgot.
Amazing.
That's insane.
That's bonkers.
Yep.
Anyway.
Happy anniversary.
Hooray! Speaking of socials, we have all of the links on our website, but I do want to shout out that we are on Threads and Blue Sky in case you are looking to do something different with your text-based social media applications. So check us out there. Yeah. You can find Stephanie on Facebook at Whale Scientist. Instagram, she's at Stephanie H. Stack. And TikTok, she is also at Whale Scientist.
You can go to our website to find all of our social media links, like Lindsay said. You can also head there to subscribe to the podcast, learn about supporting us and becoming a patron, and, of course, check out almost 1,500 whale, dolphin, and porpoise stories.
That's whale-tales.org. Tales like the stories, not tales like the animal.
And if you've seen a cetacean, we would love to add your story to our library. You can click the share link on our website, you can contact us on social media, or you can email us a voice memo and tell us all about your incredible cetacean encounter.
We will be back next month with a slightly different schedule for the holidays. Our main feed ep will be out on December 18th, and 2 days before that, we will have an extra special crossover event, Whale Tales Watch, to celebrate the holiday season the only way we know how, which is with marine mammals, and also Christmas movies.
And each other!
Yay!
Yay!
Finally, we want to acknowledge that we recorded today's episode on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples and the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, as well as the homelands of the Tsawwassen First Nation. Stephanie joined us from Australia, who acknowledged that the traditional custodians of the land and water on which we reside and work, and pay respect to the elders, past and present and emerging.
Thanks, everybody, and have a whaley great day.